In this video, I'm going to show you one of my favorite plugins that I've used a lot over the years. This is the Synthesizer Hive 2. And it's just a plugin synthesizer that I find has got a lot of really good sounds, and it's really easy to get something pretty good sounding out of it very quickly. And it looks like a beast of a plugin because it is, but you don't really need to know that much to get a good sound out of it. And I just want to show you some of the very basic functionality I use. I don't use a lot of the advanced controls, and it doesn't need to use a lot of it to get some good sounds out of it. So in this video, I'm just going to show you a little bit about how to get some of the basic sounds that I get out of this plugin. And the first thing that you're going to notice is the presets section. That's where I always start. I have a preset, and then I'll just tweak the preset. So if we check out the preset section in the top right here, you can see all of the presets are organized by categories. Over here we have the local, which is categorizing them by different instrument sounds, for example, basses. And then there's leads, or poly leads, mono leads, classic keys, strings. You get the idea. In the recent updates of each time they have an update, they release a few new patches. In this case, we're on version 2.1 of Hive. They recently released 100 new presets, so you can check those out. If you are looking at the older version, make sure you update it and you can get the new presets. And then when you find a preset that you like the sound of, what you can do is you can say, hey, I like the sound, I want to keep the sound, and I can drag that into my user folder. And then from then on, anytime I need to find that preset again, I can just go to that little user section and I'll find any of my saved presets. Now let's say I had a sound that's, let's say a mono sound. Well, on the top section up here, you can actually choose, how do I want that to be? Do I actually want it to be mono? It doesn't have to be mono. It could be poly. And now instead of a mono sound, so you can turn any sound into mono, poly, or legato. Duo is saying I want one of the oscillators to be on the bottom half and one of the higher oscillators on the top half. So that's referring to these oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. But most of the time you're sticking with poly, mono, legato. Let's see what else we got here. On the bottom here we have these macros, and these macros are some preset parameters that have been chosen. So if you adjust them, and every single one of these will have slightly different macros that have been assigned to them. These don't have to be these 8 in particular. You can switch those up, and I'll show you that actually. So to change those, what you do is you'll see in this little section down here at the bottom, there's X1, XY1, XY2, XY3, XY4, and there's also this little section here, XY. And these are all referring to those macros. So I realize there's like a lot of different things to look at here, and that is kind of the struggle when you first learn the plugin. But when we looked at those presets here, we see this Control B, and that Control B is actually right down here, Control B. It's just a label that's been chosen, and then these are the effects that are actually under that that label macro. And you can swap those out. If I right click, I can say, hey, I want that to be another effect instead. Now it's a sustain. Or now it's a oscillator 1 vibrato. So you can pick whatever you want these things to be. And now that macro is going to be doing different things. So that's the X1 control. There. So I'm just saying that you can change those, and that's what it's referring to. You wouldn't really be thinking about it most of the time. I'm just showing you that's what that is. In this little section XY here, this is kind of your dry, wet knob for how much you want that effect to be on. But over here is more interesting in this little grid, because now you can turn this up and down, and you'll see that's actually referring to this down here as well. And so that's saying, hey, I want this X control, how much I want that to be. If I play it, you'll be able to hear it better. Let's try this one. So I guess that's referring to delay, the kind of delay sound over there, some kind of delay feedback. So you can play around with these in an XY grid format. That's all I'm saying there. In the bottom half of the plugin, you'll see these little icons here, little target markings. And these little target markings are saying you can map these to various controls in your plugin. And you can use that to modify or modulate that control. So I think the most obvious example is the LFO. The LFO, in this case, you have a bunch of options saying, hey, what is this little waveform that we want to use? And we're going to use this waveform, this shape, to control another parameter in this plugin. So I could drag this, and I can drag it to any of these plugins, any of these controls, and say I'm going to have this LFO, this, in this case, triangle waveform, modulate another one of these parameters, however what I want. I could say the cutoff, for example, here. And so this is the original sound before I modulated. And now I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to use this LFO modulation by dragging this orange little icon. So that's kind of the idea, is you can have any of these be used to control another parameter. And that's true of pretty much the whole plugin. You can even use these down here to control what's modulating a plugin. For example, I got a velocity to be modulating. I could have the gating to be modulating. I could have some modulation noise, etc. So that's kind of the idea of what these are. These are used. LFOs in general are used essentially saying I need to add some movement to another control, something that's going to be turning on or off in some form, and then I can have different shapes that will choose that sound. I'm using a arpeggio sound here, so it's a little more obvious because there's lots of movement already. Let's try with cutoff here. Pretty cool sound, eh? All right, so that's kind of the gist of a lot of these controls, is they're used to trigger other parts of your instrument, other parameters that are used. You drag this on to something else and you say, I'm going to control it. The scope is kind of useful just to visualize. I don't find it's used that much by myself, but if you're kind of curious and saying, what is this LFO actually looking like? What you can do is you can drag it into the scope First, you need the scope selected. You left click the scope, and then I say, all right, I'm going to drag this in. And now you're going to see that this LFO has a little visual here. And I'll say, all right, well, what about this amp? What does this amp look like? I can drag that in, and now I can see that my amp 1 envelope is over here. And if I play the sound, now we can see what that actually is. What does that triangle look like when we have the waveform playing? In that case, it actually looks like that. And the amplitude, attack, decay, sustain, release, that's looking like this over here. And if I were to modulate these controls a little bit, we're going to see slightly different wave shape now. And if you hit this little snowflake symbol, that's saying freeze. So hold that exact spot, and then you can zoom in or zoom out if you really want to do. But really, this is just to kind of visualize what these controls are doing, I find. If you want to see what your wave shape, a waveform is, this is a way to see it. But most of these are, they're fun. They're good to experiment with. You can get some crazy sounds and trigger one thing and trigger another thing. But most of the time, my workflow is a lot simpler than this. I'm not trying to make my sounds really complicated in this plugin. I'm a simple guy. I pick a preset. I find a preset I like. I don't know, let's say I'm trying to find a specific bass sound. I'll look around the basses. I'm like, that sounds kind of fun. I'll leave the preset section and I'll maybe adjust this slightly. I'll look at this section in the oscillator section and the oscillator 2 section, and I'll adjust these controls a little bit slightly. Maybe I need some width, or maybe I want some vibrato or something like that. I will play around with this if I want it to be poly, meaning I want to have multiple notes being played at once. Otherwise, mono legato are fine. The filter, if I'm trying to do some kind of funky sound, filters can be fun. At least with the cutoff. I like playing with cutoffs. Cutoffs is usually the most noticeable of all the effects that I find it's really easy to have a change from one part of the song to another song. You just automate the cutoff and turn it on or off, and that's always an easy way to get that to sound like something's changing over time. And then I'll look at the effects over here, and I'll say, all right, what kind of effects could I apply that make my sound a little bit better? I'll, turn the module on, turn it off, increase some of the parameters here, and see if they sound good or not. And if not, just turn off the module. It's very simple in that sense. And usually that's as far as I go. I find this is good enough a lot of the time to get some great sounds out of this plugin. So yeah, that's my workflow with this plugin. It's very simple, very straightforward. I like presets, and this is a great plugin for presets. It's very easy to grab something, tweak it very slightly, add some effects if you need it, and it comes out sounding pretty good straight out the box. And then any other mixing I'll do in my my mixer later on. So that's Hive 2. I recommend this plugin. I've been using it for many years, and it's one of the better ones. So if you're interested in it, I'll put some links below, and you can check it out and see if this is something for you. But yeah, that's Hive 2 for you.